and welcome to the Cisco SecureX Summit. We're so glad that we have you here with us for the next hour or so, and we've got a really exciting agenda planned. But before we get to that, I want to make sure I share this really key resource with you, which is cisco.com/go/SecureX. That's where you're going to find more information on all the different topics that we discussed today. So let's take a look at what we have in store. So first up, we have a customer fireside chat led by the legendary Mike Storm. Mike is going to be talking to some customers about Cisco XDR and the solution they have in action and their experience of it. You're going to hear how Cisco's simpler and broader approach to XDR is helping to deliver unique customer outcomes. Then I'm super excited to be welcoming my friend from Cisco, Jessica Bear. Jessica is going to be also helping and supporting a conversation which is a breakout around IBM security. So really excited to hear from IBM and their simplified security experience. And then we're going to round up and end the session with a demo by my good friend, Jason Wright. And Jason is talking about the simplicity and the breadth of Cisco XDR solution. So remember, throughout the event, we're going to be answering questions. Make sure you submit your questions in the Q&A panel on cisco.com or on social media with the hashtag SecureXSummit. So first up, we have a customer roundtable. And let's get ready to hear from your peers and their experiences with Cisco XDR. To take us through the discussion is the legendary Mike Storm, and Mike is joined by Alex from Under Armour and from Lachlan from the Salvation Army in Australia. So I really appreciate you joining us live, Lachlan, all the way from Australia, and thank you to both of you for joining us. So Mike, over to you.
How's everyone doing today? This is Mike Storm. I'm so excited to be here and extremely privileged to host this type of a roundtable of pure experts with two amazing customers. We have Alex, who's the Deputy CISO from Under Armour, and also, as Nish mentioned, we have Lachlan, the Executive Manager of Cybersecurity from Salvation Army Australia. Two amazing experts. First off, Alex, how are you doing today?
Very good, Mike. It is great to be with everyone that's online. It's a great day to talk security. Thank you for having me.
Fantastic. Welcome. And then Lachlan, how are you on this early morning down under there, sir?
Hey, Mike. I'm doing very well. Thanks, mate. Glad to be here on the call.
Fantastic. So just so everyone out there knows, this is truly a panel of experts. To have the opportunity to discuss such a cool topic, SecureX, which many refer to as an XDR plus, if you will, with such smart people is just an amazing opportunity for us. Amazing opportunity to kind of hear directly from our peers. How are they using the system and the good, the bad, the ugly, et cetera, of what they do on a day-to-day basis. So Alex, let's start with you. Tell me a little bit about the organization and kind of how you manage cybersecurity from an operational standpoint.
Yeah, great question, Mike. As most of you know, Under Armour is a global company. We do not sleep, right? So at the end of the day, some part of Under Armour is always up and running, right? As a global organization, our responsibility is to protect our global assets, our global network, and our global e-commerce environment going forward. So we use, as much as we can, automation to make things easier and better so that we don't spend a lot of time trying to quickly identify and mitigate the threats that we are seeing.
Got it. Very cool. And so same question for you, Lachlan. Tell us a little bit about your area and how you guys manage cybersecurity.
Yeah, as most people would know, the Salvation Army is a globally recognized and trusted brand. We have a small cyber security team looking after the Salvation Army here in Australia. We've got about probably 10,000 staff, 30,000 volunteers. We've got probably 2,000 sites, and it's quite a complex environment that we operate because the Salvation Army provides a number of services. We provide assistance in disasters such as bushfires and floods, homelessness, drug and alcohol addiction, family violence. We've got our retail arm, aged care arm, our employment arm, chaplaincy, and a range of other things that we provide to the community. But the really thing that's critically important for the Salvation Army is trust. So all our funding comes from donors and from the government, and it's critically important that we maintain trust in the community, because that's what our brand is. People need to trust it. So I see that's what the objective of the cybersecurity team is to maintain and enhance that trust in the community. So that's our role.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, trust is so important, especially in this industry. It's so many different things happening. I mean, it's been an unprecedented period of time that we've just come through, and of course, still dealing with it. So, trust is certainly top of the list. So I'm going to ask you both the same question. I think this is a good one, and I'll start with you, Alex. I'll kind of flip back and forth here, but Alex, I'd love to know what were some of the elements that drew you to SecureX, and or what do you like best about it?
Yeah. So when we started looking at, as we became global and large and running 24/7, there wasn't a lot of time to quickly identify and respond to threats, right? If we were kind of dealing with the traditional methods of, an alert, combining all of this stuff together, kind of piecing things together and trying to figure it out, it was taking us a long time. So we needed to find a way to quickly get to identifying the threat so we can mitigate the threat very quickly. So that identifying the piece and then making sure that it is a threat and we need to put mitigation plan, that was taking us time, and we needed something to quickly pivot and get to that. That's where I think SecureX is actually adding value to us, right? So we are able to bring together the multiple entry points that we have, or bring to bear the multiple threat vectors, if you may, and trying to kind of get it across one single pane of glass. And that's such a cliche word that we always try to use, and it never happens. But it looks very much like we are trying to put that in place, trying to make sure that we get email and network data and firewall data, all of that in one fell sweep. And it turned out great with Jess kind of showing how quickly you could actually bring all of that stuff together in one screen. So that's the value that we think is SecureX bringing to the table.
Yeah, that's fantastic feedback. In fact, we hear from a lot of customers that one of their number one benefits of SecureX is the fact that it does reduce their time to detect, and because of the integrations, they get such a trusted level of evidence right away that they can make decisions. So it's good to hear that you're experiencing the same thing. Fantastic. So Lachlan, same question to you. What drew you to SecureX, and what do you like best about it?
Yeah, so we've only got a young team at the Salvation Army. I think the team's been in existence for just over 18 months. And in that journey, we've brought on a lot of technology, and Cisco has played a big part in that. And the reason we went down the Cisco path was not only did they have good technology in each of the different areas, email, web, endpoint, cloud security, but what was really clear when we were evaluating the different players in the industry was once you bring all that technology together and you start to utilize tools such as SecureX threat response and the orchestration automation, it becomes brilliant technology. And that was really important to us because, as I mentioned, we are a small team. The more automation, integration, and bringing that technology together, the better it is and the easier it is for us. So especially this, what we're really finding useful and what we're really finding exciting at the moment is the orchestration part of SecureX. We're doing a lot of research now on what other third-party integrations we can bring into that. As I said before, just bringing all those different technologies together and have them playing together nicely is what really drew us to Cisco.
Yeah, it's really, it's interesting when I think about, not only what customers have told us, which is very similar to both of your responses, but also, kind of what the belief system of Cisco is and kind of what we set out to do, which is certainly manifested in both of your responses. And that is, we believe, I mean, our products are big, right? And there's certainly consoles for everything. And, like you were saying, Alex, kind of the original plan was, you see something and you start putting it together, you got to do it manually, kind of the swivel chair kind of thing, right? Going between different tools. But we kind of felt that it was really important that our customers have made an investment in product and that they really shouldn't have to pay more. They should be entitled to the visibility, the integration, the correlation, the automation that is available with SecureX. That's kind of why we put CTR out there and why SecureX threat response is there now. The ribbon and orbital integration, all these things that we do to try to make this as close to that panacea, as you said, Alex, of a single pane of glass, right? We at least want to give you that first cut where you can have reliable evidence to make decisions. And I think that's a truly important thing. And also, I think one of the reasons that the analysts give us such high marks on our integrations because of that intelligence behind how we put it together. So yeah, it's really, really good and refreshing to hear that at least the beginning of that mission on the journey has succeeded so far. And of course, we'll continue to push that and get better and better over time. So
and probably one other thing I didn't mention, Mike, is reporting and metrics is a really important function in cybersecurity. You need to show value in the investments that you're making. And I know previously I was pulling reports from all the different products, all the different Cisco products, and they all look and behave a little bit differently. Yep. You've got to pull all that together and try and create a standard and constant picture. What SecureX has brought is it's actually doing that for us now. It's bringing all the analytics from all the different consoles into one standardized picture, and that's certainly made our lives easier.
Yeah, I hear that a lot, and I think it's a testament to the many, many, many years of security operations experience behind the folks that put the integrations together, right? Because it's not just about having data. It's about having useful data that makes sense, data that's meaningful, and data that really, gives an operator or an analyst the information that they need to make good decisions for action, right? That's huge. And then reporting is kind of a direct benefit of that, right? Because it's the data that's being collected and summarized that's actually being presented to you. So those data sets can be very consistent and very meaningful on the output. So good to hear.
Just to piggyback on that statement there, real quick. We always look at our tools as augmenters to the human faces, right? So it gives us another set of hands. Instead of having to teach my analyst how to look at logs from each one of these different tools, I am getting another set of hands that actually goes and pulls all of that stuff, makes sense out of it, and displays it to my analyst. And the analyst is very good at using his brain power to understand what is being provided, instead of trying to bring it all together and trying to figure out where everything is. This actually provides you with that second set of hands that queries everything that we are looking for and bring it all under one spot and kind of show that flow of where that incident happened or where that event happened. So definitely a value add tool.
Yeah, I would agree. I know my own personal use of SecureX in my operational environment, I see a benefit of that is really important, and that is when there's a new threat or some new activity, without something that can truly bring it together into one area and pull all the IOCs together and pull all the valuable data together and present it for your analyst, you actually have to spend a great deal of time kind of understanding what that threat is. What are all the vectors? What does it touch? How does it operate? How does it flow? And to see that kind of thing being automated without any additional configuration inside of SecureX, I've heard over and over and over again how much time that saves the analyst to have it all presented to you as the threat, because we don't then have to go investigate and learn what the attacker has done. We're getting it all presented to us in context, which is fantastic. So, yeah, good to hear. So, I have to ask the obvious question that probably is on everybody's mind. We've had, I would say, one hell of a year the last 12 months as far as changes and just the amount of adjustment that most organizations have had to make. I mean, this is a kind of an unprecedented shift, almost a tectonic shift in the way that we do things. Question to both of you, Lachlan, I'll start with you. Based upon what's happened, has there been a lot of change as a result of the pandemic, as a result of working from home, or anything around that context that you want to share?
Yeah, if I had $1 for every time someone said unprecedented, I wouldn't be on this call. I'd be in the Bahamas somewhere. But no, it certainly was unprecedented times. And look, our priorities didn't so much as shift during this time as greatly accelerate. So, as far as what we were responding to prior, those threats that we were seeing just increased. And you've got to remember, in Australia, we were already dealing with a disaster in the bushfires.
Indeed. Yep.
And when you're working for a charity or organisation, in times of disaster, you become a target because those cyber criminals want to get a hold of the money that's flowing into your organisation. So we're certainly already seeing increased activity as part of the bushfires. But I think luckily for us, just as that pandemic was starting to break, was just as we were deploying the Cisco technology. So as people were moving from the workplace to home, we had to significantly increase our efforts in getting collaboration tools out there in a secure manner. We had to change tack in our awareness activities to make staff aware of the different things they had to do from home, the different environment, how to secure their technologies. And all while that was going on, we were rolling out this new technology that Cisco provided us. So I think for us, it was important that we had that greater visibility into what was going on. And because Cisco's entirely cloud technology, it didn't matter where our staff were.
Right.
We were still getting all that intelligence and all that analytics coming in. So it was really great for us to have that all coming in, because we were certainly dealing with a lot of other things during the pandemic, and we saw a big increase in cybersecurity attacks on our organisation, as did most organisations globally. So we certainly had to change tack and look at different things like MFA when that was rolled out in very quick time. And so, yeah, there was certainly a lot going on. So it was good to have all that Cisco technology in the background providing us the insights and the analytics.
Yeah, it's interesting as we watch this whole thing unfold, we saw even the tactics change somewhat, because the expectation of the attacker was that the business was modified. There were people in different places, et cetera, people working from home. And so we saw a lot of, quite honestly, slow moving attacks towards, these different environments that people weren't prepared for. And, SecureX, one of the great, consistent things about it, as you called out, being cloud technology as it is, it really doesn't matter where the things, the elements of that system are. You still get the same data, the same analytics, et cetera. So really glad that you got to experience that firsthand, because it isn't something that's probably inherently obvious unless you're dealing with a giant shift like that, where you never lose sight of your assets. So that's fantastic.
Yeah, the opportunities and the exposures. When COVID hit, everybody just disappeared from the offices, right? So you got the umbrella that was protecting you, right? The corporate network security that we have all put in place, the cover shell, that just disappeared, right? And everybody went home, and you couldn't protect them unless you were ready for a mobile force. You were trying very hard to get a hold of that very quickly. So the opportunities increase. So you hear about more attacks and more exposures, et cetera. It's because the exposures just happened. Right now, you have to defend everybody's home, not just your corporate offices, right? So that's where the issue was.
Yeah,
right
and that's exactly what attackers hoped for, right? They thought, well, people are saying their $80 million investment in their shell, as you said, the on-site shell is worth about $8 right now because everyone's moved off-site, and if you can't see them, if you can't see them, I mean, it kind of opened the door for those attacks, and some of those attacks, I mean, I know we saw the rebirth of ransomware, and some of these other things that really had, not that they went away, but they quieted down a lot, right? And all of a sudden you started seeing more, and we were really happy to watch our customers never losing sight of those assets, regardless of the move. They were still there, still visible, same graphs, same context, same analytics. I mean, that's just it's a great thing to hear that you both, were successful, as we've always hoped as part of, the initiative to move to SecureX. So fantastic. So I think we're probably 5 minutes away from as far as being out of time. I would love to know, though, from the standpoint of your current operational models, what you're doing now. Obviously, it's a new calendar year. I don't know if that changes much right now because everything's kind of still the same a little bit. But do you have any new priorities or any new ways that you might be leveraging technology going forward? Anything you can share, of course, anything private, you please omit.
As I mentioned before, Mike, we're a young team. Just over 18 months old. During that period, we've deployed a lot of technology, a lot of new technology. We've replaced legacy, and with the Cisco security suite, we've standardized a lot of things. I think for us, in the next 12 months, a lot of what we'll be doing, our priorities will be bedding down that technology. We'll be educating our staff on how to use it, and wherever we can, we'll be integrating third-party products into the technology. So we look at SecureX, and you've already got some third-party integrations in there. But from what I've been demonstrated from Cisco is that if something has an API, you can bring it in.
Yeah, it's a hub.
Basically.
Yeah.
So we're certainly over the next 12 months, we're going to try and bring everything into the SecureX platform for those automation tasks. We're just about to deploy a new SIEM. So one of the things we'll be working on is how do we integrate that SIEM, not only in a technological sense, but also in a process and procedure sense.
Yep, with automation, right? I mean, that's the other big thing.
Yeah, with automation.
So forth. Yep. Yeah, you heard from Jessica earlier. Her team is the one that's kind of in charge of bringing in all the third-party technologies. And, I will say I think every technology is a bit of a journey, right? Because we have the initial connectivities you called out, Lachlan, with API. APIs are not always, they can be limited up front as far as what you can do, but as time moves on, we start to realize the value of that horizontal integration that we can provide, even making those products, better overall from an operational perspective, and really giving you even more capabilities than you would have if you just used all the individual products by themselves. So,
we'll be looking at using more automation workflows in SecureX. We've got a couple running at the moment. One of our workflows that we've pulled off one of the GitHub repositories, where a whole stack of great workflows and atomic actions are already sitting there, is we've got this workflow running every morning for us on a schedule that searches the Talos blogs, looking for new blogs and new IOCs and observables, brings them into the platform, searches our network for these observables and these IOCs, produces a report for us. So when we come into work in the morning, that report's sitting there in our WebEx chat and a ServiceNow incident, and we're ready to hit the ground running. And we didn't even have to lift a finger to do that. So that's just one of the examples where we're using SecureX orchestration at the moment.
Yeah, that proactive operational, management is huge, right? Because it's doing it as this intelligence is is being, realized. That's fantastic. So same thing to you, Alex. The value, maybe what you're doing in the coming year, and heck, if you want to talk about, the same thing Lachlan did about threat intelligence and how that's helped you, that'd be great too.
Yeah, I would, I absolutely agree with everything that Lachlan mentioned. Make our lives easier, right? Make it faster from a detection standpoint and mitigation standpoint, right? At the end of the day, security and every other IT service is here to enable the business, right? So once this whole COVID thing hit, everybody's thinking, well, we didn't skip a beat when we all went home, right? Well, this whole working from home is probably not a bad idea. Well, how do we enable people, to work from home, right? So now you got a big mobile force that you need to support, and to make sure that you had all the luxury that you had in the offices, now you are kind of extending it out to the remote people's workplaces, right? And if you were kind of enabled to do some of that stuff, you didn't skip a beat. And there's also this push towards cloud consumption, right? SaaS models and making sure that you're consuming services in the cloud, so you're not limited or tied down to a data center, right? So a lot of the stuff that we are seeing is enabling us to go in that direction to support the business in a very cloud, external, work from anywhere kind of an environment. So the security teams are, kind of given directions as to, hey, look, I want you to enable my workforce to be working from anywhere. Whatever visibility and control you need to have, go ahead and go get it, and go get with your partners and make sure that the partners are ready and enabling you to kind of go forward with that service. So that would be my add-on to it. And you guys are right on path to kind of do it.
Yeah, it's you when you say that, I think, how many other people can say that they can interact and operate their SOC from home, right? I mean, it's impressive. I mean, it really, just that freedom to be able to have full capabilities without having to go into an office, because, maybe not specifically for your companies in certain areas, but there's a lot of companies that, it's too dangerous to go into the office, right? They can't do it. But that doesn't mean that they're any less vulnerable. It doesn't mean they're seeing any fewer threats. They still have to be ready to take those on and operationalize them, and of course, take action on what they see. So, yeah,
absolutely.
Good info. Well, guys, it has been an absolute pleasure. We are coming down to time here, so I want to thank you both for your feedback and for getting with us and being here. And Lachlan, I know it's early there, so you're up at about the time I woke up this morning, but I've been up for hours. I mean, it's truly a pleasure, and thank you guys so much for your time today. Let's hand it back to Nish.
Thank you, Mike. Thank you, Alex and Lachlan. What an insightful conversation. I love your passion for security, whether it's in the afternoon, it's 4 a.m. I love that passion that's coming through in everything that you say and share. So thank you. So I know we've had some questions that have come in for you guys. You've actually done such a great job in answering them, and the couple that we have, and we're answering some of those online as well. And I believe we're going to run a demo showing how IBM Security, QRadar, and SecureX are working really well together. So Chris, Jessica, the floor is yours.
Hey, thanks, Nish. It's always a pleasure to work with you on the other side of the pond, and it's really an honor to have Chris here. Chris and I have been working together for 3.5 years. And Chris, as I think back at some of the things we've worked on, across the Cisco and IBM platforms, we worked on ThreatGrid, which is now Secure Malware Analytics, on AM for Endpoints, which is now Endpoint Security. We've worked on Resilient, on Big Portfolio, on QRadar, and we're going to talk about SecureX and threat response. And we're also working to upgrade some of the other integrations we have in QRadar, like Firepower, which is the firewall. We're also doing cloud security. So there's a lot going on. So thank you for joining us.
Always love to have a chat with the Cisco people.
Excellent. So tell us a little bit where you're coming from. You're up north, right?
Yeah, I'm based in Fredericton, New Brunswick, Canada, which is one of the main QRadar development labs. I'm part of our Technology Alliances team, so I work with companies like yourselves to make sure that anybody that wants to integrate with any of our products in our platform, QRadar, Resilient, Cloud Pak for Security, Guardian Data Protection, Verify Identity and Access, I help the third-party companies build integrations and help them get ready with environments and development kits and everything they need. And obviously, Cisco has always been a great partner of ours, and we've had a really great alliance. So I've helped work on this integration among all the other ones you mentioned.
We appreciate that. Let's go ahead and advance. So as we talk about, that's a lot of my role as well, is about the open architecture. And we really appreciate that you have that same vision to work with other partners. You're not just going to have, our customers we're going to hear from aren't just going to have one product inside there. We need to make it simple. It's been a great partnership. Every time I needed help from you, you've just been there for it, because we need to have this ability to have it turnkey. So as little configuration as possible by our users for the experience. We really appreciate your partnership in that, because the whole point of it is to make it so there's more visibility for the SOC analysts, the security operations team, because we want to reduce that time to detect, and QRadar is a great platform for that. So we really appreciate your partnership there in advance, because the real point of it is making it more efficient for our joint customers here, so that the time to remediate, the time to react is just reduced. So, we're going to look at two parts of that. One is using your excellent platform as the SIM environment, and also getting that intelligence. We'll go ahead and advance. So Cisco SecureX, the point of it is a built-in cloud-native platform. Any of the products that we've talked about, the different integrations that we've done with QRadar, if you have any one of those Cisco products, endpoint, network, the cloud, for authentication, for malware analysis, SecureX comes at no additional cost. You are entitled to it. We've had over 5,000 customers already turn it on, tens of thousands, including all of you likely that are listening to this broadcast. You are entitled to have this, and it's really easy to turn it on. But you're not just going to have Cisco products like we talked about. We want to increase your visibility, and with that, we need to have integrations. Please advance. So one of those is, of course, with your SIM. We want to talk just a little bit, Chris, about your infrastructure that you provide.
Sure, yeah. So QRadar is an industry-leading SIM solution for large enterprise. We can ingest your security logs and events from all of your different products, as well as do flow analytics, IPFix, NetFlow, SFlow, and we can ingest these at exceptionally high rates for large enterprise. Our special ability is to correlate these in real time. You can build really advanced sets of rules and hit these rules against all of the events and flows coming into your network. Context is super important, and I'll go to show how SecureX helps with that context, and how if we can pass information from product to product, we can really build a full end-to-end solution to really help with your incident response and your SOC workflow.
Excellent. And it's, when we reached out to you and asked for your assistance, you were just right there providing a development environment. And then when I came back to you last fall and said, hey, let's do your intelligence platform as well through XForce Exchange, you're just right there, giving us access, including this week. Again, we need to renew a license, and boom, you're right on it. So that's what it's all about, is working together. Please advance. And we appreciate that partnership. So with SecureX, we have different parts of it that are part of this platform. One that you'll see across all Cisco products is this ribbon, the single sign-on, and the context, so you can start an investigation. Also, when we get into the demonstration, we'll see a dashboard with some of the statistics from the different Cisco security products, but we're going to dig into some other portions, so please advance. So integrations is one. So we have a pre-built integration with QRadar, and then also the intelligence source. So QRadar being kicking off an investigation, because you're most likely to be in that environment, and then also being able to get that intelligence. Please advance. So threat response is the real core of it, and that's a platform for a unified threat response, an aggregation of APIs, and then you can actually do something with it. Advance, please. And then the other aspect of it is orchestration, to be able to automate the different workflows and human tasks. So these are in bold the areas that we're going to cover in our portion. Please advance. And continue. So how is it going to happen? We're going to be inside of QRadar, and there'll be some sort of event or observable, and you'll want to do one click and be able to go and investigate that. As we get into the other demos, you'll see that you could also do this from security blogs, from Cisco interfaces across the ribbon. You're not going to be spending your time glued to the SecureX interface. You're likely going to be inside of your SIM or other environment in your infrastructure, and then go and investigate it. Advance, please. But once you do that, with one click, you're going to be able to very quickly, it's about 60 seconds is the time that we ask that all of our integrations give back answers to you, and then see the relation between all these different aspects of an attack, whether it's a SHA of a file, if it's coming from an email, if it's a suspicious or malicious URL that may be hosted on an IP address, and then be able to take action on those targets. Advance, please. And that's what we really want to empower you to do, is do something about it. Not just, you've seen those commercials like, hey, we alert you there's a problem, but then like, no, what? You take action. So are you going to isolate a host, block the file, block destination, such as DNS? Please advance. So we want to empower you to do something with it. So these are the observables that you'll be able to search across inside of the SecureX environment. And we've mapped to those we show in the demonstration to over 100 different fields inside of QRadar to these fields that we support inside of threat response by SecureX. As you think about your environment, this covers a whole lot of the different attack vectors that you will see. And please advance. So how does this work? When you have an alert in your SOC, currently you may have to do a cut and paste, copy a hash value or an IP address into many different consoles, and then do the search, and then it comes back and you figure out what is going on there, and then maybe take action. Please advance. So what SecureX is designed to do is, instead of doing that, you ask in one place, it goes out with this API aggregation. It asks the question to all the different data sources, including, as we'll see here, IBM XForce Exchange. What do you know about this? Bring that back so you understand the context. What is happening with this particular observable, this IP address? How does it relate? Am I affected in my environment? And then be able to take action and remediate. So that's what we're going to do. Please advance. And the other side of it is making that your task more efficient on the orchestration side. So you may have different tasks that you need to do, these human power tasks. Please advance. And to empower you to create workflows using atomic actions, those are specific actions working with an API. So you could, any product that you have that has an API, you're able to create an atomic action, those tasks, put them together in a workflow, and then to run those. And those are some of the feedback. You can see the feedback from some of the customers, how they combine multiple tasks across different products and different infrastructures and different teams, and then be able to execute with one click. And that's what we'll be doing. Please advance. So in summary of how this integrates into your architecture, you're going to have Cisco products, third-party products. You're going to have your IBM infrastructure. And we want to be able to provide enrichment and also make it more seamless for you and provide the ability to response. So you have those different aspects of SecureX, the dashboard, the tiles, the ribbon across the bottom, the core threat response, orchestration, but you're probably going to tie it into other playbooks like in your SOAR environment. We're not trying to just have you rip out your SIM, of course, because you're going to be using the SIM, like in this case, QRadar. We're not asking you to rip out your SOAR rather than work with it. IBM Resilient is a very powerful SOAR platform. Been an honor working with Chris and his team to build integrations with that. You're going to get security feeds from different places to help secure your environment. Please advance. So I showed the different fields that, observables, and those are indicators of compromise that we support. And there's a whole lot inside of QRadar that we mapped to over 100. Chris, you want to pick it up here and talk more about your awesome platform?
Yeah, so one of the things that Cisco SecureX is taking advantage of is QRadar has a GUI Application Framework that allows third-party companies or customers or services companies to build integrations that inject things into our UI. One of the most important things that you can provide to a SOC analyst using QRadar is context, right? I see an IP address, it's not a local IP address. Is it bad? Is it good? I don't know. With our GUI Application Framework, you can inject that information so you can have real-time on-demand enrichment where a user can hover over one of these fields and immediately get answers from Cisco SecureX of should they be worried about this or not, or do they need to continue investigation against this or not, or is it benign? Can I leave it alone? Cisco SecureX has, mapped more fields and used this feature more than any other partner we've ever had. Typically, you'll see companies, work with IP addresses, maybe a few URLs, but Cisco SecureX really tried to make sure that they covered the wide gamut of possible fields in QRadar, which there are tons, as you can see here. This is a small, very, very small percentage of the list that they actually cover. Next slide. So this is what it looks like inside of QRadar. So this blue panel pops up anytime you hover over an item in QRadar, whether you're in the log activity tab, which is your logs and events, you're in the network activity tab, the assets tab, and it will enrich with any information that QRadar has, which generally for most things isn't very much, right? If it's an asset that QRadar knows, it'll give you the asset information. If it's part of a domain that QRadar knows, it'll give you that information. But here we can see the power of integrating with platforms like Cisco SecureX. I've hovered over some SHA-256, and all of a sudden I have tons of information provided to let the SOC analyst know what he's looking at or what he or she is looking at, and can now make a decision and move forward. Next slide. Not only can I, and here's another example of seeing it right inside an event in the log activity screen. Next slide again, sorry. Not only does Cisco SecureX give you the ability to look and get a little bit of information so you can make a decision, if you feel like this is bad enough, you can actually right-click on a lot of these fields and say, yeah, let's investigate this in Cisco SecureX. Once you click on that, it opens that IOC in Cisco SecureX, and you can continue your investigation from there. So you're saving huge amounts of time. The SOC analyst can look and immediately see that there's something worth investigating. They don't have to do any copy pasting. They don't have to open 15 tabs to look at many different products. They right click on one thing and they can immediately go look at it in Cisco SecureX. Can you, next slide again? Also, IBM Security has something called the XForce Exchange, which is our threat sharing platform that has threat intelligence from our researchers, from our managed services teams, and from other users who've decided to share threat information. This is a free site that you're allowed to go look and see what the different IOCs that we know about are. And with Jessica, we work to integrate that as one of the feeds for Cisco SecureX. So now, once I've looked at something, whether that came from QRadar or somewhere else, I can now go and see if XForce Exchange knows anything about it and the information about that. Again, trying to save you some time, trying to stop you from having to copy paste and open 15 tabs everywhere. This really can save a SOC analyst a lot of time. Next slide. And here you can see you can actually force another search right on top of it, right from the SecureX platform. So again, same kind of functionality you see in QRadar, you have that functionality in Cisco SecureX to reach out to our XForce Exchange. Next slide again. Jessica, you want to take over?
Absolutely. So thank you, Chris. We appreciate your partnership and showing us how. We'll get into the demo. Appreciate you helping us set that up in our environment so we can show that with our colleague Ian. And we'll go through all those processes like Chris talked about to hover over, to pivot in for an investigation. And then you'll see this investigation in threat response. You'll have all these different sources. As you notice, like when we had the pop-up over QRadar, there was information from Cisco products like Advanced Malware Protection, Global Intelligence. Also, VirusTotal was set up. In the demo, you'll see XForce Exchange. And then when you're inside of that threat response and you're looking at the context and the right click, you have the ability to take action, including that pivot like you shared. Here's where you can learn more about it. You can see all of the integrations that we have with SecureX by going to cs.co, that's Cisco for short, threat response integrations. Also, all of the IBM security products that Chris has talked about and more at ibm.com/security. And then they actually have a place on our website, cs.co, that's Cisco/IBM, and you can see more about QRadar and what the different products that they integrate with across our portfolio. So let's go see the demo with Ian. Thank you, Chris.
Hello and welcome to the Cisco SecureX and IBM integration demo. For Cisco SecureX, I am Ian Redden, the Manager of Ecosystems Development at Cisco. I'd like to talk to you today about Brian. Brian is a SOC analyst at a small financial services company in Toronto, Ontario, Canada. Today's demonstration follows what it's like to use both Cisco SecureX and IBM QRadar in a security operations center. Without further ado, let's get started. Brian starts his day with a quick meeting with the SOC manager. Every day he receives the same question: how secure are we? Unlike other analysts in Brian's industry, he's never been worried about this question, as he's powered with both Cisco SecureX and IBM QRadar. Brian's SecureX dashboard contains everything he needs to know to efficiently secure his organization. In addition to integrations with his Cisco products, the integration modules have been set up for all the products that Brian owns in his organization. Additionally, from available integration modules listing, Brian has considered other security products to add to his arsenal of tools. And he's really eyeing a Cisco Umbrella subscription and VirusTotal. Brian usually starts his day the same way by opening his QRadar console. Very quickly, Brian notices something very strange. COVID-19 YouTube.com. 55% of cyber-squatted domains today are usually malicious or potentially fraudulent. As this domain resembles YouTube.com, a popular video sharing website, Brian decides to investigate further. We're going to hover over the destination IP address. Cisco SecureX is built on Cisco's threat intelligence model, CTIM for short. Judgments are the intent or nature of an observable. For example, is it malicious, clean, suspicious, common, or simply unknown? Verdict is the top judgment of the judgments. And citing is when an indicator has been seen. Indicator is evidence to support a judgment and what defines activity or presence of malware. In this case, with Cisco SecureX verdicts, we have Cisco AMP Global Intelligence, IBM XForce Exchange, both telling us a disposition of something we need to look at. It's either malicious or suspicious. And Cisco Umbrella is giving us a disposition of unknown. So based on this information, Brian decides to investigate further. So to investigate further, it's even simpler. You simply right-click on the destination IP that we were just looking at, hover over More Options, and then investigate in Cisco SecureX Threat Response. Cisco SecureX and Cisco Threat Response is at its core an integration and aggregation platform for multiple security products in your organization. This allows you to query multiple monitoring systems with a single query and in a single pane of glass simultaneously. We can see Cisco Threat Response has finished doing the lookup of our suspected malicious IP. At the same time as we see it being assigned dispositions based on all the intelligence and data Threat Response puts at our disposal. Additionally, at the top of the screen, we see targets, what's being investigated, related items, the one indicator from IBM XForce Exchange, as well as what enrichment modules were used. This purple computer icon tells us that one of our workstations has indeed seen this IP address. We can also see it has been potentially communicating with it. We should probably look into that further. And now that Brian is aware of this machine, he starts to dig a little deeper. He selects the target endpoint and investigates further in Threat Response. Next, we've changed our investigation details slightly and are looking at an enrichment for this particular desktop. Interestingly, we see these red icons. Red is not necessarily good. And in this case is a malicious SHA-256 hash is associated with this desktop that we are looking at. And we can see verdicts from IBM XForce Exchange telling us that that hash value is malicious, as well as we see a lookup from VirusTotal. If I wanted to know more information on the malicious indicators and their verdicts from IBM XForce Exchange or Cisco AMP file reputation, VirusTotal, etc., to pivot to their particular website for the particular enrichment module you're interested in, you can simply click on the down chevron, and then I could pivot to IBM XForce Exchange, which would take me to that particular website, or I can investigate further in ThreatGrid or Cisco Umbrella. But in this case, Brian has talked to his management, and he's talked to the employee that uses that machine, and they strongly suspect a Trojan's installed. And management at this point has asked Brian to isolate that machine. So to do that, it's quite simple in Cisco SecureX with orchestration. And a workflow has been created called AMP host isolation with tier 2 approval. So in this case, that's what Brian would select, and that's what he would do. Cisco SecureX orchestration gives us the power of workflows. Once in orchestration, you will see all your workflows that are available. And if we click on a particular workflow, for example, AMP host isolation, which Brian just used in our scenario, I can see all the activities and logic that is used to build this workflow. For example, we see approval request is created, it sends an email, waits for approval, and then it isolates the machine. So if I were to click on send email, for example, I can see all the properties that are used, including the message that is sent when approval is requested. Additionally, it's important to note that while our enrichment modules have created a verdict or a judgment on a node, by clicking on the down chevron, you're capable of creating your own judgments. So if you knew this file wasn't malicious and it wasn't being listed as malicious or vice versa, you could come in here to the create judgment window and create a disposition for it and a reason. One really cool feature I need to touch on is the ability to add nodes or observables to a case. We have the same scenario from before. The target endpoint is in purple. We have the ability to find observables on page and then add 8 observables to a case. So I can either select an active case, which I have none, or I can do a new case. If I set new case, a case is created. I can now open the case book and I can see all the details of that case as well as the observables. I can come in here and edit this title, call it something a little more appropriate, like COVID-19youtube.com, suspected malicious. And if I wanted to, I could add a summary. Setting up QRadar to be able to communicate with Cisco SecureX is quite simple. Once you've installed the integration and extensions management, you should see an icon for Cisco SecureX Threat Response. If you open it up, you should see the extension settings requiring a client ID and client password. To generate the client ID and client password, go to Cisco SecureX, come to your administration page, open up API clients, and generate an API client. Plug in the client name, which I'm going to use client name of QRadar. And then under scopes, you need enrich read and inspect read. Once you've selected those two and plugged in a client name, you can click add new client. This information can be used now to copy to your client ID and client password. Click save and you should be good to go. That is all for this demo. Thank you very much for your time. I am Ian Redden. Take care.
And so we'll move to our next section now, which is hosted by our Threatwise TV host, Jason. So Jason Wright, how are you doing?
Doing fantastic, Nisha. What a great event so far. Really enjoyed hearing from a couple of customers. So thanks for having me on here as well. Appreciate it.
And I believe you're going to take us through an XDR demo, right? So show us what's exciting, what's new, and why customers and partners should be excited as well.
I will. I am. And I am looking forward to walking you through all of this. So we've got quite a bit to show you, but it's actually a pretty straightforward demo. But I think this is a really powerful demo that shows not only the simplicity, the visibility, and the efficiency that Jessica was talking about, but also some of the automation and the level of integration that we created with all of our products in the first place before SecureX even came around, that has enabled part of what we're able to do here in an XDR solution, right? So this has been one of the biggest aspects of it. And what I want to walk you through here is a little bit of how you would do it traditionally with looking at a couple of different products and trying to correlate them and then figuring out how to do it. But even what I hope you'll see is the level of integration we have there is already well far in advance of what you're used to with that swivel chair management. And then finally, I'll show you how we automate the entire process so that you could be pretty much completely hands-off and just kind of monitor some of the end result of what has happened when we find these events and can isolate them automatically. So let's take a look at a little bit of a more traditional way to start some of our day and our use case here. If we're looking at our network security analytics platform that we call Stealthwatch, that we are seeing a few events from. And if we look down here, we've got GandCrab is a piece of ransomware that's been detected on one of our local hosts. And so one of the first things we're going to do is take a look at this particular host and see some of the things that we can do just from a drop down, just from a single product and a single perspective, is look into other products and have them interact, right? So one of the things you see here is investigate with threat response. That's part of the SecureX platform. One of the things you see is create a judgment or do something with our endpoint technology, with AMP for endpoints. So a separate product and technology, but integrated and working from the network security analytics technology that we're looking at here. Even going into Orbital and seeing a profile of a host and what processes and hardware and configurations we have running on that. So for this moment, this is a piece of malware or a piece of ransomware. That's something we definitely want to move quickly on. So in a more traditional sense, you'd take this and then you'd go look at another product and say, well, where did I see it on the endpoint? And did I see anything from the firewall or the IPS? But if we go from here and just launch straight into a threat response investigation, as we saw in the earlier demo, this just starts to map out all of the things that are related to that ransomware file. Okay, so that ransomware file is what you see in the center of this exploded diagram. All of these other things are relevant files or folders that it's either gone through or traveled with, or if we saw an email as a delivery mechanism, that would show up here as well. And so what we really want to pay attention to is the endpoint in the top left a little bit that has been affected by this piece of ransomware. And so immediately I can go into that endpoint and look at a few different options that we have. Again, things that we can do within the endpoint technology, looking at the trajectory or isolate the host immediately, profiling the device, or we can get a little bit more sophisticated and complicated by actually having a couple of different actions. So send the URL up to our sandbox for analysis, or delete the emails that had this URL in them, or anything like that. Maybe block the domain across all of our users, whether they're on or off the network, using our secure web gateway and SASE solution. But for this one, let's go ahead and take the time to do take a forensic snapshot and see what we saw on that device, and then isolate that host so that that piece of ransomware can't spread. And here we would do that. And what I've shown you here thus far is about as manual as Cisco gets. This is about as much work as you'll have to do. Like I said, I hope that you're seeing the level of integration. Even when I was in the network analytics product, I could take action from the endpoint technologies. Okay, that stuff's already integrated because that's the way we've been building these technologies. It's not just buy a bunch of products and sell you a bunch of stuff. We've been tying them together in the back end, and then now SecureX has become the front end representation of that back end integration. Okay, now the reason that's important, besides speeding up your time and accelerating your investigation, is that when you start to look at deploying an XDR solution, if you're talking about bringing on a third party, it's something you have to bring in and bolt on, and then you have to create some coding and scripting that normalizes the data from all the different products. And then you have to create your data lake and your database and get all that information in there. And then you can finally get the value of XDR because you finally have all that information looking the right way. But what you see is that we've already built our products that way. So you can skip all of that. So when you're looking to move forward, expedite the detection and the response, accelerate your time to resolution, make our lives easier, get it done faster, as Alex was mentioning, that's the kind of technologies that we've been building in. And like I said, this is about as manual as it gets, but it can get even faster. And one of the big components of an XDR solution is automation. And so if you wanted to just speed this whole process up and maybe make the whole thing a little bit more automated, we can use these workflows within SecureX. And they're so beautifully represented. I love the way that this interface functions and looks. Here on the left, you can see a lot of different security technologies, both Cisco and third party, a lot of different technologies and feature sets within different products. And you can just start to drag and drop these into a workflow. Okay, no coding is required, very little details, even on the right-hand side. Sometimes it's API keys and login credentials to allow them to talk to each other, and that's it. And then this stuff starts to work together in a workflow and will run automatically. It could be running, like I think Lachlan said, at the beginning of every day, or you can start to run it every 5 minutes, however quickly you want to have these iterations running. And so if you look right here, let's say everything that I showed you earlier with the network analytics and the endpoint, the investigation and that response, we want to automate that whole thing. So from now on, if the network analytics has an event, there's an alert, let's start to take that information out. Let's get the IP address, let's get the device IDs, let's get everything we can, and make sure that we can talk to the endpoint technology. Okay, and so once you've got all that event information, and maybe you set a classification for ransomware because that's something you have to respond to so quickly to keep it from spreading throughout the organization and causing, you know, what's a minor inconvenience to repair one endpoint versus a debilitating, crippling ransomware attack across some key servers. That's what we're trying to prevent. So we can make all of this happen automatically. Once you've got that event information out of the network analytics, it's automatically going into the endpoint and isolating the host that's relative and represented by that event. Okay. Now, really, you didn't have to do anything to make this happen. And of course, you'll get a message in the Teams room or ServiceNow ticketing, whatever tracking you want to do, that says, hey, by the way, want to let you know, don't need to do anything. I took care of it. But we saw an event, I blocked the domain, the IP address that it was coming from, and I isolated the host that was infected by it. And then the host is, from the end user's perspective, that host is now going to be represented as isolated here by endpoints. So what I hope you've seen here is a couple of different things. Number one, multiple technologies that are integrated from the get-go. And that level of integration makes a huge difference, not just in your deployment of the XDR functionality and solution in the beginning, but your continued ability to use it as you have to change things and script in and normalize that data and populate your data lake. That can all be a pretty complex level of work that you're responsible for to make all this work. But because Cisco Security has built these things into the back end, and sharing information from the firewall and the web gateway and email and the endpoint and the network analytics and the data center analytics, all of these things are working together and sharing this information natively in the back end with those products individually, and even more beautifully represented through SecureX. And that's where we start to put in some of that automation and simplicity of moving across those different panels to take a look at what you do want to investigate when you don't trust automation. And that's an interesting point. Real quick before I wrap up, we talk about automation and what if I isolate a host that I shouldn't have and I kick the CEO off the network and I'm going to get fired kind of thing. Well, yes, you should be concerned about that. You should be careful and test out and tread lightly when you go into automatically isolating hosts. But when I talk to customers, what I'm hearing is that they would much rather have to deal with a false positive or a minor inconvenience of one or two users rather than face a ransomware infection that went through their entire network and crippled the entire network and may cost hundreds or thousands of dollars in repair. And even if you had good backups, that's still days and days of work to get everything restored and get that network back up and running. And so erring on the side of caution and automation has been the MO, especially with the ransomware movements. And like we heard from Alex and Lachlan, that so much more of that has been stirred up by COVID. This is where you need to rely on these kinds of things. So level of integration in the back end reduces your time to set up an XDR solution, reduces your time to use and maintain your XDR solution, ultimately providing incredible level of simplicity and visibility and efficiency via those automated functions that you can run that are allowing you to do all kinds of things with all kinds of products. And ultimately, at the end of the day, that's what we're here to do, is make your lives easier, simplify your security operations, reduce the time to detect and respond, and really just take the endpoint detection and response, take the network detection and response, and then make the X be the secure X. It makes it XDR that puts it all together, ultimately saving you time, saving you money, and probably saving your network at some point, because you saw how simple and quick it can be. So with that, I'll turn things back over to Nish, and I think we're going to take some questions and see what people think. I'm excited to hear it.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Jason. I love the energy that you bring to your demos, and it's one of my favorite things about watching the Threatwise TV episodes. So thank you for that.
Well, if I could put in a quick plug, we have so many of these, so many of these videos with our Threatwise TV program. If you want to check out more demo videos, or everything's about 10 minutes long, quick interview, why are we doing this? And then a quick demo is showing the technology of new features and our products and how they're working together, especially with SecureX these days, over at cisco.com/go/Threatwise for Threatwise TV, and you'll see almost 100 videos. So we're coming up on the century mark of those demo videos out there. Great resource for our customers and prospects to learn more about our technologies.
Amazing. It's amazing how my brain has retained that URL, Jason, for when I guest hosted one of the episodes. So yeah, that was a super fun one, so check that out. Okay, so a couple of questions that we've had come in through, and we've got a couple for Jessica and Chris, and we've got one for you as well, Lachlan. But Jessica and Chris, let's come to you first, because you obviously talked about SecureX and the QRadar integration. So where can people go to find and download this information?
So the QRadar integration can be downloaded from the IBM Security App Exchange. All the apps on the App Exchange are free for any QRadar customer to go ahead and download. And all you have to do is go in there and search for Cisco, and you'll find it.
Amazing. Thank you, Chris. And then I guess what are some of the new capabilities that people can keep a lookout for around QRadar?
QRadar is going through lots of interesting changes. We have upgraded to a new application framework, which Cisco is working to upgrade their apps to, and a lot of new technology changes. We also have a new platform called Cloud Pak for Security, which is sort of the future of our IBM security portfolio, where we'll have kind of one unified platform with services that companies like Cisco can use to build micro applications on top of. So a lot of our development focus and a lot of our focus and marketing focus this year is going to be around Cloud Pak for Security.
Awesome. And you refer to obviously what's coming ahead in 2021. So Lachlan, I guess I've got a question for you in the theme of obviously January, first month of the year. So what are some of the opportunities, some of the challenges that you're seeing with security this year? What's your priorities or your focus areas, I guess, going to be?
Well, I think, as I was saying to Mike, I think as we bring in further products into our realm, I think we'll definitely be looking at integrating those into SecureX. So we've certainly, on our SecureX journey, we've certainly integrated all the Cisco products. We've integrated VirusTotal, and I think over the next couple of weeks, we'll be looking at bringing in things like Shodan, Google Safe Browsing, Have I Been Pwned? And we're going to look at using those technologies. For instance, we might look at getting some alerts from Cisco CloudLock on a potential account takeover. And we might go to Have I Been Pwned and see if they've been part of a recent data breach and return that information. So things like that we'll be looking at leveraging that technology for those kinds of things. As I said before, we're just about to bring on a new SIEM. We'll be looking at how we can integrate the two to get better automation. But you know, we're so impressed with the SecureX technology that we're actually considering now that being a requirement when we look at other technology. Can you integrate with SecureX? Might be one of the requirements on the RFP. So yeah, we're pretty excited about our journey for the next 12 months. But as I said before, it's a small team, so wherever we can get automation, we'll certainly be looking at that.
Absolutely. I'm sure you'll be busy, but as you said, we've got a few things that we can do to help you as well throughout the year. So
yep.
Again, thank you so much for joining us. And I think that's actually all we have time for today in terms of questions. But remember that anything that we didn't get to answer live today, we'll make sure that we get the answer to you after the event by email, via social media as well. So thank you so much to everyone that's joined us here for this live event today. For more information, you can go to cisco.com/go/SecureX. And remember, if you're already a customer, you can activate SecureX now by logging into security.cisco.com. So thank you so much again, and hopefully see you all soon at our next event. Thank you.
Lucy is my English name. The Chinese name is Xiu Fan. I come from Beijing, China. I have been working in Cisco for 19 years. I'm a sales manager in customer experience team. I think Cisco is really a great company. Cisco support us giving back live days. We have some energy. We have the eager from the heart. So everybody, when they know what I'm doing, they just raise hand. Lucy, give me a chance. I want to join. I can make something happen. I work for the Gray and Shine Foundation since 6 years ago. They had a lot of program, but the major program is support rural teacher and rural children for the reading program. The children really need resources to support them and to get the learning capability to support their future. We actually leverage Cisco some technology like WebEx, we provide some training to the teacher. They can, improve their skill and their reading knowledge, and they can know the word better. I think together we have a big power. Is not only one or two children can benefit from that. I'm proud of that.
Between rural school kids and a universe of learning, there's Lucy Guo.
If we're to build a bridge to an inclusive future, then getting healthcare to everyone, everywhere is critical. Take rural Europe, where local doctors leaving for big cities is creating a medical desert. For patients left behind, many lack the mobility or the flexibility to reach critical urban appointments. The remedy, it turns out, is as much a technological marvel as it is a medical one. Meet Medibus, a state-of-the-art clinic on 4 wheels. But designing such a wonder came with its own set of challenges, taking everything Cisco knows about mobility, connectivity, video conferencing, and security into account, and, together with partner Deutsche Bahn, dispatching it from the cloud to create a 21st century lifeline. Now, no area is too remote, no diagnosis or specialist unavailable. All because one company dared to wonder if the road to better healthcare could literally be the road that runs through town. That's the inclusive future. Cisco, the bridge to possible.